baby, come on.
Well, the Young Turks, full week ahead for you guys, full show ahead for you guys. It's a Monday. We're jam-packed. Alana Kagan, her hearings have begun. I'm not even going to get to her today. There's about 8 stories I'm not going to get to today. But we are going to get to the establishment media's reaction to the McChrystal story in Rolling Stone. We've talked about it before, but God, there's a perfect example today of how mad they are that someone actually did reporting. God, there's a couple of good examples. So we got to do that for you. The G20 has wrapped up, and obviously there was enormous issues over at the G20. And then I believe somebody died. Did somebody die? I think that was, yeah. Okay, right. We're going to get to that very, very soon. Obviously, Robert Byrd has passed away, the longest-serving senator in United States history, and his death affects many different things other than having its own significance. We're going to get to that in 1 second, but let's get started. Big news today. It looks like for the first time, Afghanistan war funding is in a little bit of jeopardy. It has been blocked for the moment being. Now, is it funding for the whole war? Is it because the Democrats said, all right, that's it. This war is not winnable. This is crazy. What are we doing here? No, of course not. But it's at least a start. Nita Lowey, Democrat of New York, has blocked $3.9 billion that would be going to State Department, among other places, for reconstruction of Afghanistan. So don't worry. We're still bulldozing Afghanistan and bombing Afghanistan, but the reconstruction money has been stopped. Now, why? She says a very good reason, and it's because she says, I think it's going towards corruption. She is indisputably correct. Yes, there's no question. Some of it is, not the whole $3.9 billion, but every single report, whether it's the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, or congressmen that are returning, are all saying, yeah, the corruption is totally out of hand, and the Karzai government is doing almost nothing about it. Big story about that in today's paper as well. So she has passed that on to David Obey, who's the head of that committee, and he says, yeah, I'm with you. Let's block this until we can figure out where this money's going. That then kicks it over to Nancy Pelosi. How's she going to react? Of course, Speaker of the House. She says, look, quote, I was just there for Mother's Day in Afghanistan that weekend and traveled in the country, even more remotely than Kandahar. And the corruption issue, it's problematic. And you know what? A lot of it is our money. This is about systemic, huge money. So she is predisposed to blocking that funding for now. Now, of course, if you ask me, we should block all of the funding. Of course, for Democrats, that's a bridge too far, as they say. Now, at the G20 summit, when Barack Obama is asked about the issue, he says, well, look, everybody's obsessing over this issue of when we're going to leave Afghanistan. Yeah, because it's our longest war ever. We've lost over 1,000 men and women in that war. We've spent over $1 trillion in both wars combined. Yeah, I'm sorry for obsessing about it. And by the way, you just fired your top general there, and all of his men in that same Rolling Stone article say that the war is a lot worse than we even realize in America. So then when they asked Obama, hey, how about the timeline here? Are we really getting out by July 2011? First he says don't obsess. Then second of all, he gives you a general sense that we will, he's of course middle of the road as always for Obama. He says, well, we won't be pulling out right away. That's absurd, right? And of course, absurd. Even though the war is not working at all according to every source we've got in there. And he says, and we won't be staying there forever. Well, fantastic. Right, middle of the road. So other articles are saying that they're putting the timeline at about 5 years. So we're there for another 5 years. Now, Nancy Pelosi says, look, we got to get serious about beginning withdrawal in 2011, and I'm not playing. My guess is she is playing. If history is any guide to what the Democrats are going to do about wars, they'll huff and they'll puff, and then at the end, they'll give the executive branch whatever they want. So this is part of the huffing and puffing. Now, the thing that really flipped me out is, I know it's just rhetorical, but Obama on Afghanistan said, you know, I don't have a crystal ball. I was like, wait a minute, I heard that before. That's literally exactly what George W. Bush said about the Iraq War. But don't worry, Obama said, we're making progress. Man, that is haunting. That is chilling. So, all right, we swapped Iraq for Afghanistan, even though except we haven't really finished Iraq yet. Sometimes I get discouraged. So now, finally on this $3.9 billion, my God, man, all right, let's say we pull this, and there's value in that. But please, please, please don't keep bombing them and then not provide any reconstruction help. So all the bridges that we promised and the schools and the roads, if we don't deliver those, and all we do is just increase the war, and now Petraeus, they're saying is, going to make it tougher and going to come to their house. Nonsense talk. Nonsense, right? What are we doing here? God damn. I mean, look, you can sense my frustration, right? And the reason is every single article I read says, what, winning? I don't know. What's winning? We make Afghanistan a little bit more stable? So now, when Obama was asked about, hey, wait a minute, isn't all of Al-Qaeda in Pakistan? He's like, yeah, okay. But listen, we have to make sure that we stay in Afghanistan because we don't want them coming back into Afghanistan and providing a base from which they could do terrorist attacks. Okay, look, there's some justification in that. There's some reality in that. The flip side of that is, well, under that logic, don't we have to invade every country and occupy it around Pakistan? Okay, well, they could go to other countries. They could go to Kyrgyzstan and get a base there, and Kyrgyzstan's in a lot of trouble. There's revolt, there's upheaval. Should we go to Kyrgyzstan and make sure that Al-Qaeda can't ever set up a base there? Look, I know where Al-Qaeda already has bases, Somalia and Yemen. Does that mean we should go and occupy Somalia and Yemen so they can't have bases there? There's no end to this. There's no end to it. And when Leon Panetta was asked over the weekend, on the ABC program, hey, how many Al-Qaeda do you think are in Afghanistan? He said, 50 to 100. Whoa, think about that. Now, I already knew that, but the CIA director admitting that on air, it's mind-blowing, man. I mean, look at that. We have 100,000 troops in Afghanistan. And at most, there's 100 Al-Qaeda in there? So we got 1,000 troops for every member of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. That's mental. Mental. Are there more than 50 Al-Qaeda in other countries? You better believe it, let alone Somalia and Yemen. I mean, at some point, there might have been more than 50 Al-Qaeda members in the United States before 9/11. And Germany, and Italy, and England. Do we occupy everyone? And the more you look into it, man, I mean, look, this is in a lot of ways obvious, and in a lot of ways, nobody in America is talking about it. And we need perpetual war, man. That's what we need. We need that military-industrial complex to keep getting those contracts. And those guys pay their congressmen and their senators and their presidents handsomely, whether they're in office with campaign contributions or they're out of office, and they pay their generals handsomely. So look, hey, Vietnam, come on, we learned a lesson from Vietnam, right? Come on, oh my God, what a terrible, disastrous occupation. It didn't work, right? Vietnam, we learned a lesson. What happened? We didn't learn anything. That led to it was already part of the Cold War, but the Cold War kept going on, and in the Cold War, what happened? We had to keep spending a lot of money on defense, right? Build more nukes, build more nukes, build more nukes. Warring into the Pentagon. Okay, fine. We won the Cold War. Fantastic. Now we can power down, right? No, it turns out we got a war on terror. Power it back up. Invade Afghanistan. As Rumsfeld said, Afghanistan is not target rich enough. Like, there's not enough stuff to blow up. So let's just start a war in Iraq for no goddamn reason. And now they're both churning along. It's been, over 8 years in Afghanistan. Wait, no, over 9 years in Afghanistan. I'm being a loose track. And soon are we going to be saying, how many decades have we been in Afghanistan and Iraq? And when you ask the president, he says, I don't have a crystal ball. Well, I do have a crystal ball. My crystal ball says you will stay there until the defense contractors say, we've had enough, we've gorged ourselves, with so much money that, we might have some public relations issues if we stay there a little longer. So, on to the next war. When does it end, man? When does it end? All right, last thing. I got to repeat it. 100,000 troops, 50 Al-Qaeda. 100,000 troops, 50 Al-Qaeda. Are you fucking kidding me? All right, now we go on to financial reform, where I can ask that question again. All right, well, we were worried that financial reform's a bit of a joke. Well, we might be aided by the turn of events that have happened recently. First of all, do you know 2 Democrats were set to vote against it? Maria Cantwell and, of course, the legendary Russ Feingold. Now, if you ever want to know who's right and who's wrong in the Senate, or which bill you should support and which one you shouldn't. Now, you shouldn't do this all the time, and it's not a good idea in general, right? But a rough rule of thumb is, if Lieberman is for it, especially if he's co-sponsoring it, run for the hills. Never trust Lieberman, okay? He's always on the wrong side. Now, if, on the other hand, Russ Feingold is in favor of it, you got gold, okay? You look back at Feingold's record, see if you can find an error. Go ahead, I dare you, okay? Right on Iraq, right on Patriot Act, it goes down the list, right? All right, so Feingold's the other guy holding out on financial reform. This is very interesting and critical. You'll see in a second. So it looks like they've cobbled together barely 60 votes to get past the filibuster. How'd they do it? Because Cantwell and Feingold are not on board, they reeled in Scott Brown. How'd they do that? They gave him exemptions, okay, and they gave him loopholes. Now what they're calling the Bay State buy-off, right? And he was very upfront about this. Scott Brown, who ran on, that Nebraska Cornhusker kickback is ridiculous, and the Louisiana Purchase, ridiculous, right? So he literally said, look, I'm looking to carve out exemptions for Fidelity Investments, State Street, Mass Mutual, and other Bay State-based financial institutions. Now, normally they don't name names. See, he's a rookie. Normally they say, I'm looking out for my community bankers and the citizens in my area. No, he said, yeah, these are the banks I'm protecting. And so carve out an exception for them. And you know what the Democrats did? They did it. They gave it to him. So what's Scott Brown doing now? Can you guess? Saying, nope, yeah, I was messing with you. I'm going to vote no. To which I say, of course, of course. So what's his latest excuse? Well, we got this $20 billion. It's actually a $19 billion fund that the banks have to put money into over a period of years, so that pays for this bill. Because if not, it's not deficit neutral, and then you've got an issue, right? Now, theoretically, Republicans want things that are deficit neutral. But Scott Brown says, well, you know what? This is kind of like a tax on the banks, and I promised my constituents that I wouldn't raise taxes under any circumstances, so I'm out. Number one, did you not know that they had a $19 billion fund in there? Of course you did. You knew it all along when you made the earlier deal. I don't know, maybe he's catching heat for this Bay State buy-off, so he's trying to backpedal out of it. Or number two, the Republicans came in and talked to him and said, Scotty, what do you think you're doing? Get back in line and bow your effing head. And so Scott Brown, or number three, just being a Republican. Like, I promised you this, yeah, and then I kicked you in the nads. What are you going to do about it now? Now I want more, right? And by the way, if he got this payoff, the next payoff, that'd be $19 billion of taxpayer money. Gone. The banks in this legislation would pay for it, right? So he's looking to help the banks out. This guy ran as a Tea Party guy against the bailouts, etc. What a joke. What a pathetic joke. So he says, no, I want to protect all the bankers, the Wall Street guys, and make sure the American taxpayer pays for that $19 billion instead of the bankers. There's Scott Brown for you. Okay? So that's problem number one. Problem number two, Robert Byrd died. There goes another vote. Now the governor of West Virginia is playing patty cakes about who he's going to appoint. He's a Democrat, but he wants to appoint himself, but he can't, so he says he's not going to do that. He's trying to figure out what angle to play. So we got to wait till he picks a successor to Robert Byrd. So that's 2 votes, right? Then they got to make up. So then where are they going to go? They're going to go to Cantwell and Feingold, right? So they go to Cantwell. Cantwell said, look, I was very clear. There's one thing that I want specific. I think this whole thing is way too weak. But I can come on board because if you change this one provision, and what's the provision? The bill called for nearly all derivatives trades that can be cleared to be cleared, but there was no penalty for not clearing it. And so Cantwell said, well, then it's just a suggestion. You know what cleared means? It means they have to put it up on a market so we can see what the price of the deal was. So it can't be secret. So we know what risks they're taking, what the prices are. There's more transparency. It makes sense. So, and they're very proud of that, the Obama administration. They're like, oh, everything's going on the market. It's getting cleared. I mean, if they want to. Right? And Cantwell's like, well, can you stop kidding around with us? Okay? No, it can't just be a polite suggestion. Of course, you have to actually, clear all the trades like the bill claims to do. So if they change that, they can get Cantwell back on board. If they don't change that, then the whole thing is beyond a sick joke. Because then they knew all along that they didn't want them to clear any of the trades. Okay, they think they're trying to pull one past you, right? So Cantwell, good job, right? Let's see if she gets what she wants there. But that's doable. The second vote they got to go get is Russ Feingold. And right now, holding strong. And they said, wait a minute, now there's people throwing stuff on him, okay? Like I'm seeing articles about, oh, Russ Feingold was never engaged in this whole process to begin with. He's been very non-helpful and non-cooperative, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Okay, so when you ask Russ Feingold, he says, you know why? He said, in the beginning, I tried like a Dickens. He had an amendment. He supported other amendments, tried to make it strong. And then he said, by the end, I realized this ain't going to do it. This is just to pull the wool over people's eyes. This isn't financial reform. It's going to cause the next great collapse. I'm not buying it, and I'm not voting for it. Now you wonder why I love the guy? Okay? Because it isn't about making a stand. It isn't about feeling tough. It's about, hey, are we going to kid the American people or are we going to do real reform? If you're going to kid the American people, and that's going to, in the real world, cause another collapse, I'm not voting for it. God bless your heart. Now let's see what happens. They're going to offer him a ton of concessions, is my guess. But more likely they can get a deal with Scott Brown, so they'll give some of the money back to the bankers so that Scott Brown could be happy. Maybe they'll pull in another Republican who can take a bribe for the bankers and leave Russ Feingold aside. But right now, Feingold has a very clear statement on it. Here, I'll read you the statement. It says, as I have indicated for some time now, my test for a financial and regulatory reform bill is whether it will prevent another crisis. The Conference Committee's proposal fails that test, and for that reason, I will not vote to advance it. During the debate on this bill, I supported several efforts to break up the too big to fail Wall Street banks and restore the proven safeguards established after the Great Depression, separating mainstream banks from the big Wall Street firms, among other issues. Unfortunately, these crucial reforms were rejected. While there are some positive provisions in the final measure, the lack of strong reforms is clear confirmation that Wall Street lobbyists and their allies in Washington continue to wield significant influence on the process. The minute Feingold basically pulled out of these proceedings and said, good luck to you all, that's when he knew it's a joke. By the way, Russ Feingold, among 4 senators that were against a bill in 1994 that was a critical deregulatory bill that led to the collapse, was among 8 senators that voted against the disastrous bills in 1999 and 2000, removing Glass-Steagall. If you look at the list of legislation and who's been right and who's been wrong, you will always find Russ Feingold on the right side of things. And so now if he's voting no on this, I mean, it double and triple confirms for me how pathetic this bill is. So go ahead and go bribe Scott Brown or whoever else you can bribe to get it done, but it ain't going to work. Young Turks. Back on the Young Turks. So Senator Robert Byrd passed away at 3 a.m. last night in Fairfax, Virginia. He was 92 years old. He had been in the Senate for 51 years. He was the longest-serving senator in United States history. He was majority leader for 6 years. He had been involved in 18,500 roll call votes. That is another record in the Senate. He'd been elected 9 different times, including in 2006, where he got 64% of the vote. An obvious legend in the Senate. Now, complicated guy, some good sides and some bad sides. some Republicans will talk about his involvement in the Ku Klux Klan today, and they will be right. And people often mention that as a way to dismiss his current politics, but that's absurd because his politics has changed, whereas some of the people who mention that, their politics did not change, right? So let's go over the full breadth of the man. So first of all, he goes into state politics first in 1946, and he got famous originally for his fundamentalist Bible preachings throughout West Virginia. And then someone suggested that he run for office. You know who that someone was? The Grand Wizard of the KKK. Now, Robert Byrd also in the KKK, and they said, oh, that's fantastic. Well, let's get you into political office. So then here comes the charming part. He literally played a fiddle and sang mountain songs to stand out among the 12 other candidates, and people found him charming, and they elected him to his first office. And then, of course, throughout the years, he gets into higher and higher office until he's sworn in on January 3rd, 1959, as his first term in the Senate. That's the same day that Alaska became a state. That's how old this guy is, okay? Now, he later went on to, of course, reform his views on racial politics in America. But before he did, he also helped to continue the longest filibuster in Senate history. Over what? He wanted to stop civil rights legislation. He spoke for 14 hours and 13 minutes on that, about how blacks should not have the same rights as whites. Okay, so look, Robert Byrd, as I'm about to tell you, did some great things later on. But that doesn't get wiped out. It's real. It happened. Now you say, all right, but look, he switched on civil rights later. He did. You know that he was still against busing people for integrating the schools. So he mostly switched on that, okay? Now, people say, well, you don't understand. It's the historical context. No, I do understand, and it's true. And here comes the redemption part of it. And I'm not a religious person. I believe you get redeemed through your acts. And he did switch on civil rights, and later played a critical role in supporting Barack Obama's candidacy. After Hillary Clinton had overwhelmingly won the West Virginia primary, Robert Byrd nonetheless came out and said this should be our first African-American president, and that wound up helping him. Some advisors say that helped with political and moral credibility when Byrd backed Obama. It's a curious way of putting it, but okay, I hear you, I guess. Now, what did Robert Byrd do well? Okay, well, again, we have the good and ugly here, let alone the bad. So the good is there was no better fighter against the Iraq War. And I still remember those speeches, and they were fantastic. And he was impassioned, he was right, and he tried to swing his fellow Democrats, and he couldn't. And he picked up a lot of credibility there, not just in my eyes, but in everybody's eyes. And he was, unfortunately proven right about the Iraq War, and it became a disaster just as he predicted, and we shouldn't have gone in there. And there were many other things that he fought for that were democratic and progressive priorities that were good. But he was also the master of pork barrel politics. He brought home an inordinate, over $1 billion of West Virginia in just pork barrel projects. Now, he'd been serving for a long time, so the money adds up. But that's not the kind of politics I love. And, he carried around the Constitution with him, he cared deeply about the Constitution, so that was a good thing. So, look, in the final analysis, and if you're into schmoopy-papoopy stuff, loved his wife. They were married for 69 years, and he'd mention his wife, Irma, in a lot of his speeches. After he was done talking about the Peloponnesian Wars and Roman emperors and the Constitution, he'd throw Irma in there, right? And so he, of course, had a sweet side, too. And in fact, he stopped playing the fiddle after one of his grandsons died. So, look, but that's what life is, man. It's complicated. And Robert Byrd was a legendary, complicated, flawed guy who, from time to time, did things very wrong and things very right. And now the longest serving senator in United States history has passed on. So, now, let's go kick some press ass on a different note. So we have the reporter, Hastings, for Rolling Stone, who broke the General McChrystal story, and the establishment press hates him for it. How dare you break a story when you have to understand our job is to protect the military and to never show their downsides or their frailties or their weaknesses or where they're wrong. Our job is to protect the military and the establishment in power. Now, what's very disappointing is one of the biggest cheerleaders for that philosophy turns out to be Lara Logan from CBS, who has done some good reporting from the war zones, and we've shown it to you before. But I think her opinions here are outrageous, sad, pathetic, and show you exactly what's wrong with the mainstream press. Let's go to clip number 1 as she's talking to Howard Kurtz about Hastings' report.
The Rolling Stone piece that ended General McChrystal's career raises an intriguing journalistic question. Could this have happened with a military beat reporter? Joining us now is a woman with plenty of experience in Afghanistan and Iraq, CBS's chief foreign correspondent, Lara Logan. Welcome. If you had been traveling with General McChrystal and heard these comments about Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Jim Jones, Richard Holbrooke, would you have reported them?
Well, it really depends on the circumstances. It's hard to know here. Michael Hastings, if you believe him, says that there were no ground rules laid out. And I mean, that just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because if you look at the people around General McChrystal, if you look at his history, he was the Joint Special Operations Commander. He has a history of not interacting with the media at all. And his Chief of Intelligence, Mike Flynn, is the same. I mean, I know these people. They never let their guard down like that. To me, something doesn't add up here. I don't believe it.
When you are out with the troops and you're living together and sleeping together, is there an unspoken agreement that you're not going to embarrass them by reporting insults and banter?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yes, absolutely. There is an element of trust. And what I find is the most telling thing about what Michael Hastings said in your interview is that he talked about his manner as pretending to build an illusion of trust. And he's laid out there what his game is. That is exactly the kind of damaging type of attitude that makes it difficult for reporters who are genuine about what they do, who don't distinguish. I don't go around in my personal life pretending to be one thing and then being something else. I mean, I find it egregious that anyone would do that in their professional life. And I mean, I take that to the point of even when I apply to interview someone about something difficult and they want to know the areas of the interview, I might not say, well, we're going to spend the whole interview on this, but I will list that. I will list that controversial issue.
You don't want to blindside them.
Because I don't believe in that.
But don't beat reporters be nice? Aren't they nice to people to gain their confidence? And sometimes they have to write things that are not flattering.
Of course. I mean, the military is a good example. I have never been, they never know what to do with me, because I've never been accused of being of being right-wing, and, you know, they want to paint me as left-wing because they expect the media to be that way. But if you look at my body of work, it's always been accurate and fair. Now, Michael Hastings might look at my body of work and say, oh, there's an example of another one of those reporters, unlike me, that didn't go and tell the truth because they wanted to come back. That's not the case.
No, it sounds like that is the case. I mean, you're telling me with your own mouth there, you're saying, hey, look, I basically let them look at my questions ahead of time. I don't want to blindside them by doing reporting. We have to build an element of trust so that I can get back in and do another fake story for them. And these guys, they would never talk to the press. You mean like when McChrystal leaked that he needed the 40,000 more troops to the press? You mean when McChrystal was in charge of the press in Iraq in the beginning of the war? He would never talk to the press. He would never let his guard down, except for all the times that he uses you guys, right? Oh, come on. And she seems personally offended. How come we couldn't protect my friend, McChrystal? He's my friend. I trust him. He trusts me. I would never do a bad story about him. I can't believe Hastings would say that we don't do bad stories about them. You just said you wouldn't. All right, let's go to clip number 2.
Is that all the things that have been written about Stanley McChrystal being these glowing profiles, he's suggesting that he did a job that the regular beat journalists have not done. I
think that's insulting and arrogant myself. I really do, because there are very good beat reporters who've been covering these wars for years, year after year. I mean, Michael Hastings appeared on Baghdad fairly late in the scene, and he was there for a significant period of time. He has his credentials, but he's not the only one. There are a lot of very good reporters out there, and to be fair to the military, if they believe that a piece is balanced, they will let you back. They may not have loved it. They didn't love the piece I did about, hand grenades being thrown in Iraq that were killing troops. They didn't love that piece. It made a lot of people very angry. They didn't block me from coming back.
The Washington Post quoted an unnamed senior military official as saying that Michael Hastings broke the off-the-record ground rules. But the person who said this was on background, wouldn't allow his name to be used. Is that fair?
Well, it's kryptonite right now. I mean, do you blame him? The commanding general in Afghanistan just lost his job. Who else is going to lose his job? Believe me, all the senior leadership in Afghanistan are waiting for the axe to fall. I've been speaking to some of them. They don't know who's going to stay and who's going to go. I mean, the question is really, is what General McChrystal and his aides were doing so egregious that they deserved to end a career like McChrystal's? I mean, Michael Hastings has never served his country the way McChrystal has.
Oh, my God. Listen to her. Listen to her. How could you end their career like this? Other people could lose their jobs. Don't you know our job as reporters is to protect them? To protect their careers? And, you know, Howard Kurtz asked, hey, didn't you write glowing stuff? Didn't everybody write glowing stuff about McChrystal? Yeah, of course. That's what we do. We don't end their careers. We don't jeopardize them by writing bad stuff. Once I wrote a balanced piece, but they still let me back in. Congratulations. Job well done. She said, and did you notice in the early clip? I'm not left or right. Oh, no. Well, I don't try to get to what the truth is. No, I give them balanced pieces that they like so no one will criticize me and let me back in. Look, I might not have believed the things that Hastings was saying to the degree that he was saying them about the beat reporters in the war. After watching Lara Logan, I now believe him completely. Now, okay, if you think Lara Logan is bad, wait till you get a load of Geraldo. He's going to be on O'Reilly, and listen to what he says about Hastings and protecting the military. Go to clip number 4.
The man, Michael Hastings, a far-left guy, as we said, and the general was very foolish to let him into his inner circle. But Fox News anchor Geraldo Rivera dissents on the journalism front, saying Hastings was wrong for printing provocative quotes from McChrystal and his staff. Geraldo joins us now from upstate New York. Let's get to the war of journalism here. You know, I'm trying to put myself in Hastings' position. If I'm there and I'm in a bar and McChrystal and his guys are spouting off about Biden and being a moron and all these other things, and it's not off the record, Geraldo, you know that when you allow a journalist in, you say, look, this is on the record, this is off the record. But if it's not off the record, I mean, you know, I'm writing it down. You're not?
You know, Bill, this is a situation where you have to put it in the context of war and warriors and honor and the penumbra of privacy that is presumed when it's not on the record specifically. When you're hanging out at a bar waiting for a plane or a train or an automobile and you're stuck together hours and hours and you're drinking in a bar or you're at an airport lounge, this is not an interview context. These guys, particularly the staffers who gave the most damning statements about the civilians in office, including the Vice President of the United States, these guys had no idea that they were being interviewed by this guy.
I'm not sure about that,
This reporter, wait, hold on, Bill.
This
reporter from Rolling Stone, he was a rat in an eagle's nest. What he did was to become part of the background, part of the scenery, knowing full well, given his political ideology,
well, let's walk through
and
this.
Everything else, his attitude, he knew what he wanted to do.
Okay,
and
I'm not disputing.
This was not a 280 hitter. General Stanley McChrystal is no 280 hitter. If General Petraeus is Babe Ruth, and I agree with that analogy, General Stanley McChrystal is Lou Gehrig. He led our
Lou
special
Gehrig,
operators.
Babe Ruth.
He's been deployed more than any fighting general, and I really am so
Geraldo.
sick over this.
All right, take a deep breath. All right, you got to walk with me through this interview, okay? Calm down.
No, but that's perfect. There it is. Geraldo, he's in love with General McChrystal. He wants to go to bed with him. I mean, and they often do. They sleep together. I don't mean like physically in bed together, but they're embedded. They are embedded. And he thinks Stan McChrystal is Lou Gehrig. He's an eagle, and this rat in an eagle's nest did reporting. Called himself a journalist and wrote down things that were true. No, we're not supposed to do that. Did you hear what he said? He said, look, these are warriors. There's honor here. Honor meaning you never report anything bad about them ever, right? No, that there's privacy here. You're a reporter. You're a reporter. We've completely forgotten what reporters are supposed to do. And he says, well, unless something is on the record specifically, then you should not report it. You know what that means? he's a stenographer. Here, put this on the record specifically, Geraldo, and he writes it down, and then he hands it in as if he broke a story. No, he got what Lou Gehrig gave him. So, you think these guys are reporting the truth to you from Afghanistan and Iraq? All they're doing is trying to protect their jobs. And they have this hero worship of not just the generals, not just the troops, of the government, of the establishment, of power. They bow down to power because power gets them paid. Geraldo's rich off of this. Why? Because he never challenged them. He never did his job. He's terrible. They all suck at journalism. It's a joke to put journalism and all of these people in the same sentence. They're pathetic. And that's why we never find out what's really happening in those wars, let alone anything else in Washington. God bless Michael Hastings, the only one who ever did any reporting. They suck. God, I get so mad. Your obligation is supposed to be to us, not them, not power. Did any of you go to journalism school? Did any of you even look up the definition of a journalist? You're pathetic. You're craven. All you want is more position, more power, and for the people in positions of power to like you. Oh, Geraldo, nice job. Pat on the head, pat on the ass. Nice job, Lara Logan. Okay, you keep reporting balanced stuff that we give you. Otherwise, we don't let you back in. Otherwise, you're a rat in an eagle's nest. Don't be a rat. Be a good guy. Do exactly as we tell you. Bow your head. You're not fucking reporters. You're pathetic. Young Turks.
My ego is my imaginary friend. He was with me when I was only imagining.
All right, back on the Young Turks. First time to thank members, as always. I'm going with member number 1363 here, Miranda O'Donnell. She joined on March 10th of 2009. Miranda, great to have you with us. And then this is perfect. Lieutenant Irma James. Remember Irma from earlier in the show? Robert Byrd's wife is named Irma. Not this Irma. But Lieutenant James, great to have you with us. Thank you so much for being part of the Young Turks. Now, speaking of being part of the Young Turks, our Facebook page is really close to hitting 10,000 members. So let's push it over the top a little bit. Last I checked, we were 168 shy. We're probably a little closer now. But that'll be cool to have 10,000 on our Facebook page. So check that out. It's facebook.com/TYT Nation. Very simple, okay? Now, I mentioned Irma earlier, or just now, I should say. I'm kidnapping this segment to do a little bit more politics. And so just let me touch real quickly on Robert Byrd. You remember I told you he was part of the KKK. One thing I left out, which I found amusing, is that he said he joined the Ku Klux Klan because of its anti-communist position. No, he didn't. Okay. Come on, Harry. Yeah, and they were against animal rights. And they were against removing speed limits in West Virginia. And those were the reasons he joined the Ku Klux Klan. No. It's one reason why you joined the Ku Klux Klan. And it ain't got nothing to do with any of that. Okay? So please, spare me. But you know, politicians can't help themselves. There's the argument about whether Robert Byrd would just switch positions on civil rights and everything else because of political expediency, or whether he really meant it. I say the answer is both. You know, he's a politician. Of course he changed for political expediency. And at the same time, look, I judge people by their actions. So if he does the right thing at the end, he does the right thing at the end. By the way, he didn't always do the right thing either when it came to progressive issues. He always sided with his state's coal interest over environmentalists. The good and the bad and the ugly. Okay, now, the real reason I brought this segment back for politics is I got to give you the rest of Lara Logan and Geraldo on reporting and what they think is how you report on the military. So I'm going back to Geraldo first. Geraldo Rivera is talking to Bill O'Reilly about Michael Hastings' report in Rolling Stone, and here is the next video on it.
Number one, I agree with you that Hastings is a hatchet man. All right, all you got to do is look at what he's done in the past. Rolling Stone is a hatchet operation. They hatcheted me. I was stupid enough to let a reporter named Colapinto follow me around, and he gave me a line of BS, and he hatcheted me. But I also told Colapinto what was on and off the record, what he could and could not do. Now, I'm in the business, so I know. So I'm not saying that Hastings did anything wrong. I'm not going to, is he a rat? Yeah, he's a rat. But did he do anything wrong? I don't know. But you can't explain to me, I don't think you can, why a guy as smart as McChrystal, been around a long time, position of power, knows what the press is. They even said that he turned Fox News off in his offices because he's a liberal guy, McChrystal. So he knows what the press is. Why he would even allow this guy to be around, Geraldo? Why would he even allow him to be around?
I want to be very clear about this, Bill. The President of the United States was totally within his constitutional right and power to dismiss or accept the resignation of General Stanley McChrystal because it was a lapse in judgment for General McChrystal to let this person that close to him. But I have to go back to my principal point. When someone who works for the general commanding the war front in Afghanistan mocks the Vice President of the United States, calling Joe Biden "bite me," that reporter knows that that statement, if it becomes public, has strategic significance, that the president would be forced to do what he did unless he was magnanimous beyond belief.
That's what Rolling Stone
wanted. But when it is
wanted.
a strategic, my point, Bill, is when it is a strategic issue like that, something of that import to your country, damn it, then you have an obligation to say, was that on the record? Do you really want to say that?
Right.
You have to put it in context.
All right, that's great. So if you report anything negative about the press that has about the military, that has strategic significance, and that could hurt your country, damn it. Hey, maybe it could help your country if they knew what the truth was. Did you ever think about that, Geraldo? No. Your idea of protecting the country is protecting the people in power. And so that's why you keep calling Hastings a rat. I love how O'Reilly set that up. He says, look, this McChrystal, he's a liberal guy, so he knows what the press is about. What does that even mean? Okay. And second of all, we have no idea if McChrystal is liberal or not. One thing I do know is Geraldo's only interest is in protecting the people. So all the coverage that you get from Geraldo from now on, dismiss it entirely. It's nonsense crap that he was fed by the Pentagon that he's happy to put out there. In fact, he thinks if he says anything other than that, he's hurting his country, damn it. By the way, you want to know the great irony of this? And one of our listeners pointed it out. I had forgotten. I'm glad she did. Mary Rising sent in the email. In 2003, Geraldo endangered the troops by giving away their position on air, live. That could have gotten them killed. But hey, those are just the troops. It's not like something important or something of strategic significance like covering a general's ass. That Geraldo's good at. Putting their troops' lives in danger, well, not so good. But he's not done yet. He's not going to compare Hastings to Al-Qaeda. I'm not kidding. Watch.
2 days before 9/11, 2 Al-Qaeda terrorists posing as journalists got up to Sheikh Massoud, our most valuable ally in Afghanistan. They blew themselves and Sheikh Massoud up. A tremendous setback. I maintain, historically, that the removal of General McChrystal at the hands of this freelance reporter for Rolling Stone has almost comparable strategic significance. This was a major deal. And to do it under those rules, where you have to admit your third gin and tonic, you're frustrated, you're waiting for the volcanic ash to clear, everybody is on their most relaxed behavior, to get a statement, an utterance like that, an utterance from not the general himself, but by one of his over-eager macho staffers, is something that you have an obligation, and an honorable obligation, to check out before you rush to the press, knowing that what you have done is removing a fine soldier who has risked his life for his country.
Okay. I got it, Geraldo. We got it.
All right. Now, so let's get that straight. First, he said they were on their third gin and tonic. Nonsense. Actually, Hastings was on CNN and explained that was only one of the quotes, and it was actually not a damning quote at all. It was about how McChrystal said that his guys around him would die for him and that he would die for them. That was the only quote where they were intoxicated, and it's actually one of the few positive quotes in the story. So Geraldo's totally making that part up. Like, oh, these poor guys, they were all loaded and wasted when they told him the truth. No, they weren't. They were perfectly sober. Number two, he says, oh, he's got an obligation to check with them again to see if it was off the record or on the record. He did. He double-checked, and Rolling Stone triple-checked. They said, is this stuff what you said? And they said yes. That's why when the story came out, McChrystal and his allies didn't refute it at all because they had already confirmed it several times over. But that doesn't stop Geraldo from comparing Hastings, a reporter who actually arrived at the truth, which no one disputes. Those people did say those things, and everything he reported is 100% accurate. Despite that, he compares them to Al-Qaeda. Like they're blowing up our generals. Because, again, once again, Geraldo thinks his job isn't to challenge the people in government and in power. His job is to cater to them. And if you don't cater to them, you're blowing them up like Al-Qaeda. Now, we go back to Lara Logan. She's on CNN talking to Howard Kurtz. What does she think of at least the new guy that they brought in, General Petraeus? I'm sure she's going to have a balanced approach on that and, give us her insightful, neutral opinion on him. So let's check that out. Clip number 3.
After President Obama surprised people by first relieving General McChrystal of his command and then hiring General David Petraeus, hiring him in the sense of making him the Afghan war commander, Bill O'Reilly on his Fox News show played some clips that have been put together by the Conservative Media Research Center, the Newsbusters site. I want to show that to you now.
Sounds like a pretty brilliant decision, really.
This is nothing less than a stunning development, Brian, and quite frankly, at a quick glance, almost brilliant.
Politically, in this town, it's going to be seen as a brilliant choice by the president.
A very brilliant move to tap General Petraeus.
So the suggestion is the liberal media are in love with David Petraeus and they're falling into line.
But if they had said it was a bad decision, then it would be in the liberal media hate David Petraeus and they're not falling into line. The bottom line is it's very hard to find something wrong with this decision by the president because there was only one general in the United States Army that has the political weight and influence in Washington to survive this. Anybody else going into that position who wasn't tested, who wasn't proven, who didn't have political connections would have been a lame duck. They would have been able to do nothing. They wouldn't have been able to fight for the strategy. President Obama faced a serious choice here. Was his strategy going to die with General McChrystal? Because there's a lot of opposition from very powerful people in Washington who want to move to a different model of counterterrorism and not counterinsurgency. The only way that he had to silence the critics and really to move on. This reassured the troops. This reassured the commanders. This reassured people who were in favor that the Afghans, the allies. I mean, that's why people are calling it brilliant, maybe because it was brilliant.
And Petraeus is much more press savvy, I think, than his man. He is succeeding.
Petraeus is awesome. Obama is awesome. Everybody in government is awesome. They're all so brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Do you know how heroic Petraeus? He's the only general that could do it. Only general. That's it. The rest of our generals are losers. They're all incompetent. They can't do a thing. Petraeus is the only guy in the whole military. Okay. And, I love the clips that O'Reilly played. Of course, he came to a totally wrong conclusion from it. It's not the liberal press loves Petraeus. I don't even know why that. I don't even understand that argument, right? No, it's because the press loves the establishment, loves the government, loves power. So Petraeus, we've already fluffed him up. I sent in a couple of fluffers on Petraeus earlier. He's rock hard and he's ready to go. Petraeus is a demigod. He's the only one who can do it. Oh, you picked a guy that we already hyped up and did some myth-making on? Fantastic. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. And when Lara Logan is asked about it, all the other things she said earlier about, I do real reporting, we're balanced and all that, right out the window. Instead, what does she do? Petraeus is awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, and you know what? Obama's also awesome for picking him. But funny enough, Bush was also awesome for picking him earlier. Everybody in power is awesome. How do you like our reporting? Brilliant, right? Young Turks.
It's the morning and just we two